All right, good evening, everyone. I have everybody's attention now. My name is Cedric Parker. I'm the president of the Yearlings Club. And on behalf of the members and the officers of the club, we welcome each and every one of you to the 2023-24 fall semester series of the Yearlings Louisville series. Before I make some notes, I'd like to bring some housekeeping notes up to you that the Yearlings Club is having. October the 29th, we'll be having our annual dance. We look for everybody to come on out and have a good time. We always call it a party with a purpose. We're having it over at Caesars, and you can see any club member for any tickets. And then we have a community conversation with Schatzel Townsend, Chief Administrator, Officer of Northwest Louisville Hospital. That'll be coming up here pretty soon. And then we have Russ Cox, CEO and President of Norton Healthcare. That'll all be on October the 15th, 2023, starting at 4 o'clock. And then we have Dr. O.B. Akapi. He's the president of the University of Kentucky. And we're going to have Dr. Kevin Cosby, also president of Simmons College. We'll have him here for here as well. And that'll be November the 2nd, 2023. And that will be at 6 p.m. Now, I would especially like to extend a warm welcome to our special guest, the University of Louisville President, Ms. Kim Schatzel, Ms. Kim Schatzel, Dr. Kim, and her husband, Trevor Schatzel. He is not here today. They had a family emergency today. We'll keep them all in our thoughts and prayers. They're going to have to put their little puppy down. So we definitely feel for on that. President Schatzel, we have been working with Dr. Craddock and the Office of Community Engagement with Dr. Sherry Wallace and Darrell Griffith to host this first meeting, and we're very excited about it. We look forward to future opportunities to collaborate and hope that everyone will come back and enjoy the series that we have. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Sherry Wallace. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, President Parker, for your warm introduction. Good evening, of course. I'm Dr. Sherry Wallace. I'm Interim Associate Dean for College of Arts and Sciences, Office of Diversity, Engagement, Culture, and Climate. We're right tonight with our own Office of Community Engagement, as the Yearlings Club Forum Series is part of our official U of L Signature Partnership Initiative. Our honored guest tonight, President Kim Schatzel, is continuing the tradition of presidents coming to the annual Yearlings Club Series each fall. Thank you, President Schatzel, for your how you value placement of community engagement in your portfolio. Before I introduce Dr. Craddock, I would like to welcome and recognize our administrators and faculty, staff, and students who are here. If you're here, if you just please stand and just be recognized. Thank you. In addition to Dr. Douglas Craddock, we have Darrell Griffith, who's Assistant Vice President to the Office of Community Engagement. I see that Julie Wren just walked in representing the Dean. We actually have a new Dean, Dr. Dana Teran, who is out of town. We have Dr. David Schultz, who's a Senior Associate Dean for Finance and Strategy. Talia Willis is our Director of Finance, all in the College of Arts and Sciences. And of course, my team. I couldn't do anything without them. And that, of course, is Celeste Lanier, who does a fabulous job putting these things together. Celeste is very modest, and she would never say this herself. But if you ever go to the Kentucky Center for African American Heritage, there is a pavilion named after Celeste Lanier. Ramona Brents, who's taking an early retirement. I don't know if we're going to let her go, but Ramona Brents and Demi Ward also. Thank you all for all of your help in the office. We also have some community leaders here, and I want to recognize them because, again, they don't have to show up because, again, they're very busy, but they just showed how much and important that we are as a community to them. Senator Gerald Neal, he is our senator, right? Senator Gerald Neal, he's here somewhere. There he is. We also have with us former mayor of Metro Louisville, and that is our Honorable Greg Fisher. He's in the back. Thank you so much for coming. I saw the Board of Trustee, Dr. Raymond Burst is here. Right here. Yes, and also First Vice President of the NAACP. I'm a member. And we also have former VP, Dan Hall, who is here. I thought I saw him. Yes. Now, before I introduce Dr. Craddock, just a few housekeeping matters before we move on. There's some index cards, so if you'd like to pose a question to Dr. Schatzel or for her, please take on the index card. Celeste has them for you. And you'll see on the tables evaluation, a QR code, so you can just basically go ahead and scan that. Thank you, Celeste. If you would just let us know how we're doing, we'll appreciate it very much. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Dr. Douglas Craddock, Jr., Vice President of the Office of Community Engagement, who will introduce tonight's special guest. Dr. Douglas Craddock, Jr. is a rising, brilliant scholar leader whose identity is rooted and shaped by the legacies of the civil rights struggles in his home state of Alabama, where he earned his BA in Management Information Systems, Master's in Engineering, and PhD in Higher Education Administration from the University of Alabama. We know UAB. Dr. Craddock joined U of L as faculty in the College of Education and Human Development in 2017, where he was also Chief of Staff from 2020 to 2021. With other faculty, he founded the Black Male Equity Network, B-Men, a grassroots effort focused on creating a pipeline of black male educators in multiple disciplines. In 2021, Dr. Craddock was hired as Chief of Staff to the former Executive Vice President and University Provost, Dr. Lori Stewart Gonzalez, who for a short time served as Interim President. Dr. Gonzalez mentored and appointed him as Interim Vice President for Community Engagement in 2022 before his permanent appointment in 2023. To quote Dr. Gonzalez, Dr. Craddock has experience, talents, and mostly importantly, the commitment to lead U of L's efforts in forging effective community partnerships and promoting transformative experiences for our students, faculty, and staff through engaged scholarship, outreach, and service. He will be a superb leader for our programs addressing community issues across the local, regional, and national spectrum. As the VP of Community Engagements, this is exactly what he does. You can read his full bio online. Dr. Craddock and his dream team oversee U of L's Signature Partnership, the university's initiative to enhance the quality of life and economic opportunity for residents of West Louisville, programs including Cards Come Together and the university's Week of Service, the university's TRIO, Upward Bound, and Talent Search programs, the Student Philanthropy Program, the U of L's annual Engaged Scholarship Symposium, to name a few. He represents the president on the university external community boards, communities task forces, serves as the liaison between the president, university, and external community, supports and advances university-wide community engagement, and advises the president of pertinent issues affecting the institution. I can go on, but I'm going to stop there. What I know about Dr. Craddock is that he's a genuine, courageous leader who exhibits that unique trait that's found in Scripture, and it's one of my favorite, Proverbs 19:22. What is desired in a man is kindness. He's very kind. Dr. Craddock.
Thank you. I definitely have to pay you again. We truly appreciate it. A few other individuals in this space tonight that I want to recognize. We have Dr. Ricky Jones, who's here as well, Dr. Cedric Powell, who sits over there, Dr. Fanny Cox as well. And then I know we have Ms. Karen Johnson here as well, and then Lance West, who a variety of people, as well as Dr. Griff. And I say that to say the reason why we're here is to really have a conversation between our president, Mr. David Tandy. So within that, I'm not going to go through the entire bios. We get to know them as we talk, but David Tandy, Esquire, I can say that I have the opportunity to work with his brother day in and day out. And these two men are truly men of standard. Those that know David and the work that he's done past, but also present and in the future, you can say that everything he says he's going to do happens. And whether it's relationships, whether it's in the legal field, whether it's in the community, he's truly a man of standard, is doing phenomenal work, just not now, but also moving forward. He is the husband of Ms. Carol and Tandy, as well as they have 3 kids. And on the other side, I'll briefly introduce our president, Dr. Kim Schatzel, who I've had the honor of serving under since February. And within that time frame, I can say firsthand that she operates from a lens as you know where she stands, but also she has a heart, a mind, and a passion for the community she served previously, but also this community here. And having her here today really represents just the start of the phenomenal work that we're going to be doing moving forward at the University of Louisville as it relates to our community engagement efforts. So without that, I'll pass along to David and President Schatzel for y'all to get started.
Everybody here okay? We'll try to speak up, and we're gonna share the mic, going back and forth. Dr. Craig, I appreciate those kind words about my brother and I. I will say this: Travis and I are reflections of our parents, and so what you see emanate from us starts with them. And so we want to send a shout out to Samuel and Rosie Tandy in Northborough, Kentucky. I guarantee you, my mom heard that, and so we're good. But so glad for all of y'all to be here, and President Schatzel, so glad to have you here with us here, not only in the city of Louisville. I think we're going on 7 months now, officially, here in Louisville. But we're glad to have you in our home here in the Yearlings Club. And so all of us in the Yearlings Club, we are certainly glad to have you here and proud of the relationship that the Yearlings Club has had historically with the University of Louisville, and looking forward to this conversation we're having here today. One of the first things I want to I guess kind of start off with the first question is, like I said, you've been here for about 7 months, and you're going through your the transition to the university and to the city. So the first thing I want to ask you is, as it relates to your first year in office, what is it that you hope to accomplish at the University of Louisville?
First of all, thanks everybody for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'll try and swing both ways. I think I'll be able to see everybody and see everybody's faces. But the first thing that I want to share is the fact that after 7 months, it's really great to be walking into rooms and seeing faces and people that I know, that I've met before, that I've spent time with. When you first come to a place, everybody's new and you're trying to establish those relationships. But now I can come in and be able to say hi to people, ask how they are, and have spent time with them. So it's a joy and a gift to me. When I first came to campus, one of the things that I did was I went on a listening tour, and I had about 35 listening sessions. And I talked to faculty, I talked to staff, I talked to students, community leaders, business leaders, legislators. I just tried to talk to as many people as I could. And I talked to about 1,500 people, 1,200, 1,500 people. And part of the reason why I did that is I had fresh ears, as I describe it. I had no biases, so I could hear things really crystal clear because I hadn't been here very long. And I asked people, if you were me, what should I know? Or if you were me, what should I ask more questions about? And people were kind enough to be able to share that. And I met with people that there was 10 people in the session, or there was 200 people in the session. So we did it from February through the end of June. And that was really to be able to determine where I should spend my time and what the priorities were. So I could just share with you a few of the things that came out of it. One was the incredible sense of pride and loyalty and love for the university that people had. They shared how much the university had touched their lives. Many people, first of all, how many people are either U of L alum or have a family member that have a U of L, raise your hands. Now look at this. Am I right? Okay, so when people say we're the University of Louisville, darn straight we are the University of Louisville. So people would share how much the university meant to them, meant to their family. They would talk about parents, brothers, sisters, children, aunts and uncles that attended. So we really are part of the fabric, and that really taught me a lot about what this university meant. And I wouldn't have learned it quite that same way if I hadn't left campus and really talked to a lot of people around the community. They also talked to me about the fact that the scandals. You know, the times that we've, you know, as the scandals, the missteps by administration or the failure to perform in terms of administration, the breach of trust that's established because of some of those things. But they also said the fact that we keep looking back and it prevents us from looking forward. And I can't tell you how many times people said to me, did you know about? Have you heard about? And we'd have to go back to those to get to today. So we'd spend that time doing that. So people really said that we have to start, not forget it, but we have to start looking forward, because those that look back is preventing us from achieving the potential that we can achieve as a university across the board. And it, you know, and it starts with the community. It really does. The third was stability. Talking about particularly the changeover in the presidency and how much that has meant in terms of, again, the ability to be able to move towards the future that we want to do. So, you know, we talked about the fact that Trustee Burse was the, you can raise your, it's right over there. He was the chair of the search committee that brought me here. So I'll forever be indebted to him for doing that. But, you know, I tell people, you're all stuck with me, is the best way that I can describe it. Because the kind of work that we want to do and the kind of outcomes that we want to achieve are not going to be done in a year. They're not going to be done in 2 years. They're not going to be done in 3 years. They're not going to be done in 4 years. So it's going to take time to get to where we want to be and also institutionalize it. It's also going to take time for people to believe in where we want to go because of that instability. Oftentimes what happens is people just figure, oh, she's going to leave, or he's going to leave, or we'll just wait him out, another one's going to come. You've heard all this before, right? So this is the fact that stability was probably the third piece that I heard quite a bit about. The one thing that I've talked much about, and the folks that have been around me know that I've made a real point of this as a priority for us, is student success. So the University of Louisville has a 60% 6-year graduation rate. Cherie heard me. Where's Cherie right now? Did she go over there?
You.
Okay. You heard me this afternoon say this.
I said
We have a 60% 6-year graduation rate. That's not good. Okay, that's not good. That means that 40% of the students that come to us don't finish. Our Pell eligible students have a 50% 6-year graduation rate. That means 1 out of 2 that come to this university don't complete their degree. And not only don't they complete their degree, but they have a few credits because of the fact, in all likelihood, they're Pell eligible students, they have debt. They have student loans. They have no degree, they have student loans, they didn't finish, they have a sense of failure. So in my mind, they are worse off having come to us than before they did. That's immoral, okay? I mean, you know, for so many reasons that's wrong, and we have to address it. And that's my priority, to be able to do that. We have a gap, a completion gap on our Black and Latinx students. It's about 5%. That's got to be adjusted. That's got to be addressed. That doesn't happen overnight. We have best practices on the campus, but they're just not across the entire campus. So we do things right, we just don't do it in a comprehensive way. The university that I came from, same size, 22,000 students, 72% 6-year graduation rate, so, and no completion gap between Pell eligible Black Latinx students, no completion gap. Everyone graduated at the same rate as the overall population. That, to me, is a huge outcome to be able to have. And that's what we're going to do here, is we're going to make that happen. There are only handfuls of universities that do that, but we can be one of those universities. And it's something that all the folks that work for me realize that I'm laser focused in terms of doing. So in terms of priorities, that is a priority. We have 4 plans that are being developed. We have Douglas is leading the plan to put a community engagement strategic plan together to be able to have something. You make a plan, you execute the plan. I'm pretty process oriented, and I also see the fact that to realize change and achieve results take years. So you want to put a plan together to work it. We're doing the same thing with student success, and we're doing the same thing with our inclusion and institutional equity strategic plan, and then finally a research and scholarship and creative activity strategic plan that will fit. And those will all be done this year. They're going to be transparent. They're going to be up on a website. We're going to bring it around to a lot of groups to be able to provide input to make sure that we're inclusive in terms of their development. And then we're going to start implementing to be able to do it. So it's an exciting time. I love the place. Somebody said to me, "You know how to say Louisville?" And I said, "Yeah." So for those of you that don't know me, just a little bit about my leadership journey is the fact I'm a first-generation student. My mother dropped out of school at the age of 12 because in 1928, my grandfather walked out the door one day and left my grandmother with 6 children and never came back. So she dropped out of school and cleaned houses with my grandmother. So between her and my dad, education was critically important to them. So there was no question in my household that you were going to go to college. So I was a first-generation college student. I was a full scholarship at Washington University. I was raised in New York City, so I went to Missouri, and I had never been west of Pennsylvania, so at 18, it was my first plane trip. So I went there and was an engineering major, and then I graduated, and my first job was with Ford Motor Company making Pintos. And I was a foreman. And as everybody knows, they didn't have gender-neutral titles back then, so I was a foreman. And they now call them production supervisors. So I spent 20 years in manufacturing, and I worked for Ford, Borg Warner. I was an entrepreneur. So the reason I say Louisville correctly is the fact that I did work with Kentucky Truck in the assembly plant, so I would come down very often to be able to do it. And then I had a company that I sold. I started a company and I sold it to another group, and didn't know what I wanted to do next. The company was a powdered metal component company, and there's 30 pounds of powdered metal in every car. We were the largest powdered metal company in the United States and the second largest in the world, and I had operations on 4 continents and served as the CEO. So I'm an entrepreneur as well. So I sold my company, didn't know what I wanted to do next, and I knew I didn't want to work for somebody. I knew I didn't want to start another company, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So what I didn't want to do, didn't know what I didn't want to do. And as I always say, if the voice was around back then, who knows where I'd be today? But it wasn't. So I went back and I got my PhD. And then just loved it. And at the time, the business model of higher education was changing, where about 80% was coming from the state, the funding, and 20% from tuition, and it flipped right around 2000. So someone with my background, understanding what a balance sheet was helpful to be able to advance some of the advocacy and things like that. So I've been blessed with 2 careers. I strongly advise it to repot yourself around 40. So I got my PhD at 43. And for those of you that are considering it, when I was 40, about 39 and a half, I started school. My very first semester was a doctoral class in economics, microeconomics, with PhDs in economics. And I hadn't seen a dx dy in almost 20 years. So it was really scary. But I always tell people repotting is good. So that's kind of my background, my leadership journey, as well as the priorities that I feel are so important for this community and the university. And I'm blessed to be here, I really am. So thank you, Raymond.
So Dr. Schatzel, one of the things, as far as our conversation is concerned, what I want to kind of do for everybody is, and for you, is not, I don't want to hide the ball as to like where I'm going with some of my thinking and kind of like where I'm capturing, kind of like as I'm thinking about how I'm framing these different questions. I'm thinking about the town and gown relationship that the University of Louisville has had and should have going forward with the city of Louisville, particularly with the African American community or Black community here. Along those same lines, I'm thinking about the students that we're attracting and retaining. So you spoke to it a little bit in terms of like trying to close the achievement gap and the graduation gap there, but we're equally as concerned about how do we attract students here to Louisville, because it's important that we build the brain bank that we have of diverse talent. And then equally as important is, as it relates to faculty and staff, those talented professionals that come to the university that then work there, pour into the students, but then also have the ability to kind of spin out of that, and then from an entrepreneurial standpoint, be able to generate other businesses that then help employ others. So that's kind of like where my mind is going with this. And so with that being said, one of the things that you did, you mentioned about you went around, and the first part you did was doing the listening and you were reviewing some of the different departments and things of that nature. So in your review and your listening, one, what did you discover as it relates to, and again, we as the Yearlings Club are a organization of African American men, and we are unapologetically pro our race and our people. And so we want to make sure that we're seeing advancements there. So as it relates to advancement and recruitment and retention of African American faculty and staff, what are we seeing at University of Louisville right now? Are we in a good position? Is there room for growth and advancement? And then how do we turn that around if it's not where we want it to be? How do we move forward with that to where we can attract and bring other, Dr. Brilliant scholars like Dr. Craddock and others to our community?
So the answer is we're not where we need to be. Okay, there's two sides to this that I've seen to be effective. One is the fact that you need to be able to create different best practices to be able to do it. And people understand that. Those are cluster hirings and things like that, mentoring programs to be able to do it. But you also have to create a community that people want to be part of, okay? And that's much harder to do from a culture standpoint. The feeling that I get, and this is just my guess in terms of the campus, in terms of the experiences that I've had, is the fact that we have not developed a culture that we need to be able to have to get to where we want to be when it comes to that. We need more Latinx, Black, many of the identities and many of the demographics that we're talking about to be in leadership positions, because you can't be them if you can't see them.
Right.
And you need to be supportive of the various paths that people can go into to be able to do that. You still need to put the best practices in place to do it. Now, I'm saying the fact that people are doing things. I'm not saying that they're not doing things, but we're not systemic in terms of our approach. I can also share with you that one of the things that I've talked about is the fact that University of Louisville is one of the most decentralized universities I've ever been in my life.
You say decentralized?
Decentralized.
Mm-hmm.
Decentralized. That causes the fact that you cannot have systemic programmatic change that really affects the entire university. Instead, much of the work that's been done has been either delegated or just distributed to the departments of the colleges with the hope that something happens, versus not. And that has to change. Where we need to be, and I view systemness as something to be able to talk about. And again, people are doing it, and departments are doing the right thing, but it's in pockets of it versus not. So everybody, and they came across with the staff when I was having the listening sessions, is the fact that everything is exceptional. Everything we do is an exception, and it's exhausting for the staff to be able to do that, because they often have to call 3 people to find out what to do, and then they get 3 different answers. And it causes the fact that we don't have the kind of efforts there. Now, what you see when you have a decentralized organization, you basically have redundancy and inefficiency, because that's a characteristic, but you have nimbleness and innovation. We don't have the nimbleness and innovation that we really should be having. So I really look for the fact, and this is going to be part of the inclusion and institutional equity strategic plan, is really calling it out and doing a university-wide. Now, it doesn't mean a top-down, but a university-wide approach, and to put the resources behind it as well is critically important.
Yeah, so can everybody hear me if I don't have the microphone?
Well, here's the microphone.
Y'all can hear me? Y'all can hear me? Okay, we can get that. Okay. I'm a recovering politician, and and so I can project that. Yeah, I can project that. So just kind of a little follow up on that. So then, when we're talking about, like you had mentioned, and what you're talking about in the university setting is very similar to kind of what you see in the business setting as well. That when we're trying to build, advance, retain diverse talent, there's that need for mentorship.
Yeah.
There needs to be a pathway that people can see to, advancement in their careers, and then that kind of creates the environment where you have people who want to either be a part of the institution or they want to stay. And what I'm hearing you say is you're wanting to try to. There's some good practices that are there, but we're looking to try to spread that out throughout the entire campus. Is that correct?
Yep. Okay.
So now then, along similar lines then, as it relates to students and attracting and retaining students, you had mentioned, well, one of the things actually, kind of talking to people like Raymond Burst and others that were close to the search process, what separated you from the others was the work that you did at Townsend, where you helped close that achievement gap there, particularly between black and brown students with their white counterparts. So do you see Louisville as being a similarly situated place to where that similar gap in terms of the number of years it takes to graduate from there, the amount of, which then correlates with the amount of debt that you subsequently have to incur, being lower to do that? Do you see that being an opportunity to do that here at the University of Louisville?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, it's a significant priority that I talk about all the time. And we have to do it. It's not a matter of want to do it, we have to do it. The numbers that we have to be able to address. And the institutions are very similar in the fact that they were the similar size. So it's not that the institution I came from was a tiny place. It was not a tiny place. It was 22,000 students. A third of the students were black, 12% were Latinx, so we had large populations of individuals, so it wasn't like there was 500 people that we were trying to be able to do it. From the time I started to the time I finished, we doubled the black enrollment on Townsend. It was 15 and we went to 30. 57% of the enrollment, minority enrollment growth in Maryland came from Townsend. And there was a lot of work by a lot of people that went to it. But what happens with the achievement gap, I describe it as high touch and it's high tech and high touch. Part of it is wraparound services that you have to be able to do. I always talk about one of the big best practices is intrusive advising is what it's called. You have students that start as freshmen. Students hate taking math. Okay, so they come to campus and they don't take math their freshman year. They don't take math the second semester. They don't take math the first semester of their sophomore year. They don't take math the second semester of their sophomore year. Suddenly they've got to take math. And they take it in there, and they haven't had math for 2 years. And math skills degrade fast. Quantitative skills degrade far more quickly. So they take math and they flunk, or they get a C, or they don't do well. And guess what happens? They graduate not in 4 years because they have to retake the class, or they switch majors because they wanted to be this and they can't do that. So one of the things that we do as a first best practice is we tell you what you're going to take your first semester. You're going to take that math class. There's no option. So we test you and we tell you got to take it. Why? Because the outcomes are significantly improved to be able to do it. Okay? And the data just shows it. So that's one example. And we use predictive analytics to be able to do it. So intrusive and intervention is really important to be able to do. But again, it has to be widespread. We have to do it with everybody. And we're starting that actually this fall, is to be able to do that. The other thing is unmet need. Right now we were serving about 18% of the unmet need was being provided to students. We increased that to 22% for this fall. And when you're looking at Pell eligible students, that's the #1 reason why they don't finish, is they're working to be able to supplement and be able to go forward, and the work gets in the way of the school. So we already have seen that our retention rate is going to increase as we go through that. So there's real specific tactics to be able to use. There's no one silver bullet, there's probably about 30, but we're going to be addressing them all.
Okay, and for folks who don't know, Baltimore County and Jefferson County are very similar demographically to each other when you really kind of break it down. So with University of Louisville, now are we still getting a majority of our students? Are they local, or are we able now? We're starting to recruit students from other parts of the state and other parts of the country.
About 80% come from, about 75% of our students come from Kentucky, and the remainder come from mostly border states. I think we have a great opportunity to be able to take a look at increasing. One is we have to increase our enrollment. We have about 22,000 students. UK has about 30,000. An institution such as ours should be at about 30,000 students to be able to do that. Now that will take time to be able to develop. But I think that we have an opportunity to be able to do that. I've told people that the reputation of the University of Louisville is better outside of Louisville than inside Kentucky or Louisville itself. It's true. We are our own, and same to Louisville. I've told people, will you stop? Will you just stop picking on, it's woe is me, so this, it's like, it's like we're our own worst enemy in terms of being a critic. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't want places to be better. It doesn't mean that you don't want it to be provided. But man, we just get on our own case way too often to do that. So the University of Louisville has a really fantastic national reputation. As people will tell you when they go outside, to be able to talk to people that live in different parts of the state, to be able to do that. Being part of the ACC, and Dan Hall knows the fact that as I've told him, I am the one that saved the ACC, Dan. Okay? Just kidding. But every time I saw him, he's like, "What's going on? Are they going to leave? Are we going to get Stanford? What's going on?" But there's a tremendous positive reputation for the institution that we just have to continue to build. U of L Health provides tremendous opportunity. So U of L Health was birthed out of financial crisis. Okay? And then what happens? COVID. We go into a pandemic. So you have this entity that got birthed out of financial crisis and had to figure out how to run the trains and pay the bills. And they get slapped with a pandemic for 2.5 years to be able to manage through that. I mean, talk about, they were operating just looking at what was in front of its face every day. They couldn't even come up for air because of the fact that the organization was so stressed. So right about now, they can. Okay, right about now they're coming out of it, and so we're having conversations with them, and we're actually going through an exercise to be able to do better alignment with the university, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there because we didn't have the time to get properly aligned to be able to do that, and make a decision of what does an academic health system look like, and what does it mean for this city and for this region. I've gone around the state to be able to take a look at some of the same issues that we've seen in Louisville or felt around the state in terms of access to health care, et cetera. So we're at the center of answering those questions, and we need to be, and we need to work together with our partners at U of L Health.
So in your role as the president, are you one, it always the way that the University of Louisville tends to be viewed historically as it relates in the state of Kentucky is like, it's Louisville, and then there's the rest of the state. The legislature tends to treat it as as such. It's like we're the blueberry and the tomato soup, if you will. Just flip the colors, or I guess we're the cherry in the blue drink, if you will. But so are you taking an active role in terms of like as it relates to our kind of like recruitment in terms of out in the state and kind of raising awareness? As it relates to this is what the University of Louisville can do for you in Inez, or this is what it can do for you in Mayfield, if you will.
Yes, I mean, I always point to the tyranny of the or versus the harmony of the and we can be and. We can be for Louisville as well as for the Commonwealth itself and for Kentucky. And so I spent a lot of time this past summer traveling around the state to be able to get to know people better. And we have programs already When we're looking at community engagement, Douglas is looking at how we can be able to move some of this into outside to be able to affect the rest of the state. And we have that responsibility as well. And it's not an or, it's an and. We need to, we're big. We have scale, we have scope, we have assets, we have talent, we have resources. We can do that and do it well. So, it's something that we will focus on.
Yeah, and so that gets me to that when we're going to talking about the signature partnership program again. Even when I was on city council, and what excited me about that was that it was the opportunity for a university to take its resources off of the campus out into the community to kind of not only for the students who are coming on campus or going to the institution to actually get practical experience, but then at the same time the broader community can gain from the best practices, the knowledge that comes from a institution of higher learning. So talk to us a little bit about some of the things, well, one, because that was another distinguishing factor with you, with what you did at Townsend with a similar type of program, particularly in the business community, kind of helping entrepreneurs grow and things of that nature. So talk about a little bit about what you're doing here, like in West Market Street and other aspects of Louisville as relates to the signature partnership and how that would affect Louisville in general and more particularly the African American community specifically.
So I should have Douglas do this. So I'll answer the question. You tell me what I did. Okay, Douglas. Okay. So as you said, Douglas is the Vice President of Community Engagement, and one of the things that you often find, and he's new to the position. One of the things that you often find is the fact that we have, we talk about the 500 partnerships that we have, but they're not connected. So we have all these discrete partnerships that we have, but we don't learn from them, we don't support them. Somebody else can start another partnership. And when I was at Towson, we had about 400 partnerships, and I said I don't want 401. And what I meant was startups are fragile. They're real fragile. They're like, it's like the seedling. You got to take care of it when it's first starting. And I knew that if somebody wanted to partner and to have a purpose in terms of community engagement activity, there was probably, out of the 300, 400 partnerships we had, someplace else that they could connect to be able to scale it. So to be able to hook on to what was already being done and to be able to scale and advance it in a different way. So we needed to be able to understand that better. So one of the things that Douglas has done is we've inventoried all our partnerships. Duh, right? It's one of those, like, know where we are. We would have people in one school that didn't know that there was people down the block in another place, so no one knew where the other one was. If somebody wanted to come to us to be able to actively engage with us, we now have a place where people can go. It's a heat map that's on the website that we can be able to make those connections, and also to have signature partners as well as areas of focus. So we're developing 4 areas of focus, and then we'll have the partnerships underneath to be able to advance. Very similar to what you see with foundations. Okay, foundations take very much that kind of approach. So here, it's hard to navigate a university. It really is. So to be able to have that kind of organization that people can connect with us easily, and it's the same thing with the business community. Businesses come to us and they don't know where to go because we have all these like weird names that people can't figure out, and we don't have a place to go or a front door. I always tease about the fact that university campuses are scary because the first thing you see is it tells you not to park anywhere. No way. You can't. No. No parking here unless you have a red tag. No parking here unless you have a blue tag. I mean, it's just scary. It's no parking. No signs. Can't find anything. So you just turn around and you leave because it's too scary to kind of go around. I get scared going on campus. So, you kind of do that. So, one of the things that we've talked about that you might have seen is that we had a business engagement center that we put downtown that people were easy to find. They could park and they could drive in, and it was almost like a concierge service. So we're thinking of the same thing where we could do that kind of thing and be able to see whether we can establish it. It makes it really easy for people to be able to connect. And it became a co-working place. We did entrepreneurship programs. We put it on for the community members and were able to support them. We brought in attorneys and accountants and VC people and basically gave the support for them to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to make it accessible, and it's hard to be able to do it. So I'm a real firm believer of taking a lot of these things off the campus and putting them where they belong.
Mm-hmm. And so, and even with that, well, there's I guess there's two parts to that, to this next question I have. One is, so I guess with the signature partnership, a lot of times we think of it, again, just being here in the city of Louisville. But are there thoughts to take this across the state, as well, and being able to partner with other communities in that way to kind of raising the U of L banner?
And I think that's part of what Douglas is doing with this community engagement plan to be able to do. We want to make sure that, for both of us, we want to make sure that the signature partnerships are active, healthy, and growing here, because that's where we are first. Once we have a plan to be able to address that and ensure that, then to be able to identify other areas of the state to be able to move. And again, you create a learning network. Because remember, if we have folks that are doing it in Louisville and folks that are doing it in Paducah and folks that might be doing it in Covington, we all know that the challenges and the opportunities are often the same. So you really create that shared knowledge base that works really well.
Mm-hmm. I'll hold my other question. I'll just ask it to you directly later.
So let me just tell you, one of the things that to kind of show this space is the fact that, Douglas and I have talked about the fact that there's always business engagement and community engagement. And on most campuses you see that they're separated. And I describe it as bacon and eggs. They're on the same plate, but they're separate. So Douglas has been coming with me and actually representing me with the Mayor's Economic Development Council. So he's moving in the spaces of business engagement too, so that we can create that bridge across. And that's part of what we can do, is have his office and me work in those areas. And again, it's the harmony of the end that we want to be able to do.
This is actually, so I got a couple of questions from the audience, and this is actually, it's a really good one. So we know about the recent Supreme Court ruling as it relates to affirmative action, and particularly as it relates to using race as a factor as it relates to admissions. How does that, or does it, affect the work that you're doing at the University of Louisville, particularly when we go back to our conversation about wanting to attract students of color from not only just in Louisville but across the country to come here, to a lesser extent the faculty and staff, because we still in it. The misnomer, this is me putting on my legal hat and having a comment for just a second. The misnomer was that race is never a factor in hiring. So everybody who's talking about, well, this now then makes it all these DE&I programs that you have in the corporate setting, they're going to become unconstitutional. That's not true. But as it relates so then we put back, okay. So now going back to the question I had here. So what's the effect that you think the affirmative action ruling from the Supreme Court will have on the University of Louisville?
I think the first thing that it's already had is a chilling effect on university campuses. Mm-hmm. Okay, so just from a climate and a chilling effect to have that happen, and the knowledge of the fact, and I feel really strongly about having diverse classrooms, and I come from it not just from a social justice perspective, but in all honesty, you can't have a quality university education with a homogeneous classroom. It's as simple as that. Students learn from each other more than they do from the professor. I experienced that when I was a faculty member. I was a marketing faculty member, and I taught in an MBA night school, and everybody in the room was an engineer from Ford, because Ford was right across the street. So I got one person 30 times, because they all had shared experiences. So whenever we were examining something, it was one voice. They were all talking basically the same, because they had the same educational background, they had the same work background, and they would reinforce their own perceptions and their own perspectives of things. You need to have a diverse classroom, because it stretches the conversation and everybody learns from each other. So I firmly don't believe that. I also think that on a college campus, a part of our job is to be able to have the students learn how to thrive and to support others to thrive inclusively. And one of the reasons that's important is that you cannot lead effectively if you can't do that. And we want to be able to educate leaders. How the Supreme Court decision makes, we're still unbundling some of that because of the fact, in all honesty, there's accreditation issues associated with it, but we're deeply committed to the fact that we're going to do everything that we can within the confines of the law to make sure that we have the diversity that's so important to a high-quality education at the University of Louisville. So that's the answer.
Okay. All right. 2 more questions. This one is real quick. You were in Townsend in Baltimore, a city that has professional sports in it. How
Lamar.
Yeah, you got Lamar there. That's right. So one of the things that we always talk about here is the possibility of other professional sports, particularly like NBA teams or things like that, coming to the city of Louisville. How do you see the relationship between a university and a professional team, coming to Louisville? Would it enhance the city writ large, or would it take away from the University of Louisville?
So first, let me give you the common denominators between me coming from Baltimore here that were really strange what was happening. So of course, Lamar Jackson with the Ravens and actually coming from Louisville. The stadium at Towson was Unitas Stadium. And Johnny Unitas, of course, was with the Colts, and his 2 daughters graduated from Towson. The third really interesting thing is that Connie Unsell was on my board of advisors. So is that freaky? I mean, that is like really freaky to be able to have that. So that's just, so it's meant to be, I tell people. It's just kind of a karma thing. I think that if that happens, that's great. I mean, if we have a professional team that comes here, that's great. We have I think you can have a super strong collegiate athletics program and coexist with a professional program. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't happen. The state that I came from spending 30 years in Michigan, we had Michigan as a really strong collegiate brand, and we had the Lions and the Tigers and everybody else, and it was okay. They were only 30 miles from each other because it's a different game, and I think everybody understands that. So it's a very, very different game, and a lot of people will tell you they prefer collegiate athletics, professional athletics, because it's a different kind of vibe associated with it. As I've told people, I'm in my first season as president. I'm 2-0 in football.
That's right. That's right.
So I got that going. And then, so the University of Louisville is one of only 2 universities in the country right now that have 3 teams in the top 10. So our men's soccer, field hockey, and volleyball. And the other university is Stanford. So there you go.
Very good. So my last question is, when you come back next year, and let's have another conversation about the progress that you're making and continue to have a dialogue with this community about how we can work together and continue to see Louisville reach higher heights, the university and the city.
I would love to. I would love to. If I could do that, I'd love to do it. Thank you. Please invite me. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, here we go. This question, it reads, what do you need from the Black community to help you reach your goals as they relate to diversity, recruitment, and retention? That's a good question.
So I'm going to answer things 2 ways. Okay, one is I need help from everyone regarding this national narrative that's condemning higher education. This narrative that universities are bad, that we're bad now. Used to be 72% of people between the age of 18 and 55 thought that going to university was a positive thing. That has dropped to 42%. 42%. And the narrative that's spinning is it's bad. It's don't go. Don't value it. You don't need to go. It's too expensive. It's this, that, the other thing.
Yeah.
Well, you can go to community college. You can transfer to the University of Louisville. You can graduate. 50% of our students have no debt. None. And 50% of them have about $25,000 in debt. That's not bad. $25,000 in debt. Okay? People are getting cars
More than that.
for more than that. If you have a college degree, you're going to earn $1 million more a year, $1 million over your lifetime. You have your expectation is a 3% unemployment rate versus an 8% unemployment rate for somebody that doesn't. You vote more, you divorce less, you go to church more. It's a good thing. I do. So it's a good thing. And I also think it's a national security issue. I don't think China and Korea are not saying, you know, we got way too many college graduates. We don't need any more college graduates, okay? They're not saying that. So I really get concerned the fact that we're falling behind as a nation in terms of that. Going to college, and I do move-in, I have to tell you it's the funnest thing I do. I go to move-in, and I welcome the students, and I see their parents, and I see the fact when I say to their parents, and the joy that they have, that college makes a difference still. When they're dropping their kids off, going to those residence halls, they're realizing a dream for the child as well as for the family. And they watch their child realize an adult dream that they've had, something they've pursued, and they are so proud. Grandma's crying, mother's crying, dad's not so much. But I always say, is this your first or is this your last? And I always have a parent that says, it's my only. But they realize what a college degree is. So the one thing that I can get from everybody is, please, Kentucky has one of the worst educational attainment rates in the country. Bottom 5. We're not going to have businesses move here. They move for talent. We're a talent pool provider, and we're dedicated to be able to do that. But we need to have kids go to college. And we're going to do everything that we can to make our university accessible and affordable to get kids to go to college and keep them and graduate them. It's a pretty simple formula. But thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Many people may not understand the enrollment cliff that's coming. So when you talk about you're going to grow the number of students at the University of Louisville, how are you going to partner with the community colleges throughout the Commonwealth? Because literally, that's what many other places are doing, given the enrollment cliff. And you may want to explain what that is to everybody.
So there are stats that show the fact that in 2025 that there's an enrollment drop-off pretty significant. It's basically because of no children coming in at that age. So Kim has two things that she's talking to. One is, think about the fact that 40% of our students don't stay. Imagine if 90% of them stayed. You wouldn't have to worry about the enrollment cliff.
Right.
Okay. Right now we're bringing them in and they're leaving, going out the back door, and we got to replace them again. So that's one model. The other is the fact that about 30% of our students are transfers. We are actually the largest destination for transfers from four-year community colleges in the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
That's good.
So we do a really, really, really good job when it comes to transfers, and that is not a story we've told the legislature really well. So we're the largest to be able to do that, but we need to do more. The other is the fact that, so I look at retention in the community college as big, as well as the fact that we're increasingly getting national presence, and that's important too. Yeah.
So, and along those lines, as it relates to the transfers, so does that speak to the partnership that you, I think, recently announced with Simmons College of Kentucky?
We have Simmons College, but we have what's called articulation agreements with a lot of the universities. One of the things that we're going to implement is basically specialized websites so that if you go to JCTC, that you can go in there and it'll basically match up your transcript for that school. So the ones that are large feeder schools, so about 30% of our students are transfers. Of that, about 50% are from JCTC. Mm-hmm. So to have a specialized way to be able to have them migrate through faster is something that we're looking for. But we've got a really good relationship with Ty. So, and it's been good. He was happy when I went there because he had looked up me and saw the fact that similarly when I was at Towson, we were the largest destination for transfer students in Maryland. 1 out of 4 students that transferred in Maryland transferred to Towson. And it's a similar statistic at University of Louisville. It's something I'm really proud of, really, really proud of.
Well, you mentioned early when we were talking about freshmen closing that achievement gap with freshmen and making sure that they took math.
Yeah.
You say you were good. Was that something that you are doing now? Like, so this class of freshmen were told they're taking math?
We're starting it next year.
Starting it next year.
We're getting it all revved up to be able to start it this year. This year we started the unmet need. Next year we're going to start what we call block scheduling.
Okay.
Yeah, the first years.
All right. Anybody else had a question?
Just one quick one. Did I hear you say that we're going to start redefining education so that the narrative of a college education is not so limited to just getting a job? A lot of kids now, if you say, I don't need to go to college, I can get a job doing this, I can get a job without it.
You may want to repeat that question.
So the question was, are we redefining what college education is because of the fact that, you know, young people are saying, I can get a job doing this, I don't need a college degree, okay? I completely, and again, I talked about changing the narrative against higher education, is the fact that what you have is somebody might be able to get a job now, but talk to them in 10 years. And talk to them about advancement to be able to do it. So of the jobs that are going to be around in 20 years, 80% of them are going to require college degrees. It's just the way that it is. So I always tell people that are thinking about it that you will have more options in life if you have a college degree. You have more flexibility and can weather storms if you have a college degree. Look at me, I switched jobs. I know people that started out wanting to be teachers ended up being lawyers, or lawyers that turned into teachers. You can get a one-year master's degree and completely change your career. You know, so if you were an engineer and you wanted to switch, so getting a college degree in my mind is really about the fact that you're positioned for your life to be able to be flexible and to be able to change with demands that you see in the workforce, while it's very difficult to do that if you don't have one. You know, and the earning powers are there as well, and you don't divorce as much.
This is just a statement, but I worked for 44 years at Kentucky State University for cooperative extension. You know the language.
Yep.
Okay, but one of the things that, and I'm reading all kinds of things now. One of the things that I think that colleges, and I'm not talking about University of Louisville, I'm talking about all of them, is that we are going to have to find a way to train people for what is out there, the kind of work that is needed, and that's very difficult.
Right.
Because, you know, we have our designated majors, we have all that stuff. Now, you guys are in a better position because you've got an engineering school,
Right.
you've got a medical school, but everybody doesn't.
So I'll have another favor of everybody, okay? And that is, will everybody help me tell people that they can be engineers and computer scientists?
Yes.
Okay? Because you walk up to kids and say, you ever thought of being an engineer or computer scientist? Oh, that's really hard. You got to be a rocket science to do that kind of stuff. You got to be like super. I couldn't do that. So I talked to Mayor Greenberg, who has two sons that are at Brown. It's a perfect example. And he said he was talking, and I told him this. I said it drives me crazy that people can just absolutely eliminate the job, and those jobs are the political science, teaching, those need to be the normal, everyday, I want to be an engineer, or we're never going to have enough people in those roles what we need, because people are just opting out. So he has two sons at Brown. They must be pretty smart. He was talking to his son about what to major in, and he said, well, you ever thought of computer science? And his son said, oh, that's way too hard. I'm thinking about maybe law or being a doctor, okay? So he was in his mind thinking that was okay. So they're pushing engineering and computer science into that realm. We do a great job at the Speed School, really talking to students about the fact that you can be successful and that they are successful going through it. I mean, it's a real effort that I'm real proud of, and I talk to all the students to be able to get it. So the other thing I'd ask you to do is please encourage people to know that they can major in those high demand areas, and they don't have to be rocket scientists to be able to do it, because they need to turn into just everyday jobs that every people can aspire to do. But we're never going to get ahead of it. Never.
Well, let's, Ricky.
Two quick ones. Since we're specifically talking about the black campus community, at the end of school year before last, and I talked to Douglas about that, in the College of Arts and Sciences, the largest college at the university, we ended the school year with 24 black faculty members. We began the year with 24 black faculty members, I think, right, Yvonne? We lost 6 during the year, ended up with 18 black faculty members in the college, 10 of which were in our department in Pan-African Studies, that had been slashed down from 16. And that's the largest representation of black faculty at the university. So first question, what specific plans do you have to address recruiting and retaining black faculty? That's one. And the second, on students, as we talk about people's obsession with STEM, we pretty much know in the black community that black students are still suffering from what Carter G. Woodson talked about in 1933. They're largely being miseducated. I had a student who was transferring away from the University of Louisville, a black student, who said she was sick of feeling like Ruby Bridges. So, for the ones that we do have, I don't know if you know this, but you have one of the oldest black studies departments in the country that's been budgetarily starved out by the University of Louisville, quite frankly. But without that even being addressed, what do you think about, as we talk about engineering and all that stuff, and there's like, what, 1 or 2 black faculty over engineering too, and I'm including the dean, who's my Morehouse brother. What do you think about the idea of having a general education requirement for all University of Louisville students? Black people are under attack in the state and the country, requiring them to at least take Introduction to Black Studies so they can learn something about black people. There's so many other classes that are absolutely required, but when we bring that up, it's kind of push aside. So those are my 2 quick questions.
Okay, so on the second question, I don't want to answer in a trivial way, okay? Because I don't know a lot about the previous conversation that's been had by the provost or what you're saying has been done, and we have a new dean over there. So let me promise you the fact that I will find out about that, because I want to be able to answer it within context, and I don't know what that is, because that's not an atypical question to ask. When it comes to the recruitment, retention, and development of black faculty, I think I already talked about the fact that we don't have a plan. We have a start and stop, we have to deal with this, and that's why you see you hire 12, 6 leave, you don't hire here. There's no programmatic approach to it, there's no resources behind it, and it takes many of the things that you talk about. So what I tell you to do is to realize the fact that we'll ask you to get involved in terms of the fact that Lee Gill is working with a team that he's put together, and a committee to be able to put together a programmatic plan, and I'd like to have you react to it and be able to say how we can do it better. Because it's not a one, it's a multiple pronged approach, but we're going to have a plan to be able to do it and hold ourselves accountable, and that's why it's got to be a plan that we can show everybody and we can show the progress that we've made, because good intentions are just that, sometimes they fall flat.
Yeah. And I want to be clear, Madam President, I'm not blaming you because you just got here like last week.
I appreciate that, Rick, I really do. Yeah. Give me another year and then you can blame me.
Okay. I'll hold you to that.
All right, that sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Good to go. That's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Step away from the podium, and we want to have this opportunity to present the 2 of you with a thank you gift.
Thanks.
From.
Well, I definitely will be back now.
So this is your own copy of 2 Centuries, Louisville, and these are for, because Celeste, being the person that she is, don't say anything, she remembers everything. Your anniversary was on September the 10th, so this is just to prove that you and Trevor, so sweet. Your anniversary. Yes.
Our 8-year-old dog, who is my husband's dear dog, had seizures yesterday, and we found out that he has a brain tumor. Yeah, so he can't be left alone right now. So we have to do that. So Trevor sends his best, and I'll bring him next year.
So we'll break here, but we want to thank everyone for showing up. This is a wonderful showing up today, and we want to thank those who are here, all of our dignitaries. I like to say our dignitaries and our luminaries. I don't want to start calling names because I forget. So I might miss somebody. All of you are important. You're all dignitaries and luminaries. And of course, the team. I want to thank David Tandy and President for being here. Around here and his whole team. And I thought Henry came in later, and Daryl Griffith is here. And of course, the people that work with me. I can't do anything without them. Celeste, Ramona, Demi, they're around here somewhere. They're in the back. Thank y'all so